Welcome everyone to the deep dive. If you just pause for a second and think about it, the sheer amount of information washing over us every single day is, well, it's staggering. News, opinions, data.
It really is an absolute flood.
Exactly. And then if you zoom in on a place as dynamic, as fast-moving as India, that stream becomes a powerful river. So our mission today, as you join us for this deep dive, is to give you a really well-informed shortcut into today's biggest headlines from India. We're looking at July 5th, 2025. And our goal isn't just to, list the news. We want to unpack these events, dig into the details, understand what they mean right now, and importantly, what they suggest about the bigger picture. Think of us as your guides, really, sifting through all that info, pulling out those surprising facts, those crucial insights, and making even dense topics feel hopefully engaging and, well, fascinating.
That's the idea precisely. We want to get beyond just the surface, what happened. We're digging into the why. Why does this actually matter? And maybe even more importantly, the so what? What are the implications, globally and locally? We're aiming to connect the dots. Sometimes news items seem separate, but often there are underlying currents linking them. Our hope is that when you finish this deep dive, you'll have more than just facts. You'll have a richer, more joined-up understanding of things.
All right, let's dive straight in then. First up, something that's had cricket fans absolutely glued to their screens, the second test at Edgbaston between England and India. What a turnaround. So setting the scene, day 3 starts, and England are in, well, a really tight spot. They'd collapsed to 84 for 5, not looking good at all.
Dire, really, especially considering how it happened.
Right, Captain Ben Stokes out for a golden duck first ball. And that was immediately after Joe Root got out the ball before. Talk about a double blow.
Delivered by Mohammad Siraj, the Indian pacer.
Right.
He really set the tone early on, didn't he? Intensified England's problems right away.
And that was after Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope also went for ducks late on day 2, thanks to Akash Deep. So, yeah, the outlook for England was, frankly, pretty grim. But then, well, this is Test cricket, isn't it? The unexpected happens. We saw an unlikely hero emerge, Jamie Smith. And this is where the whole story just flips.
It really is. And what's fascinating, truly fascinating about this test match is just how fast momentum can swing. Smith's innings, a perfect example. First, he had to survive that hat-trick ball after Stokes and Root went. Imagine the pressure.
Incredible pressure.
And then he didn't just survive. He launched this fearless counterattack. Tactical aggression, brilliant stroke play. You could feel the confidence immediately.
And the speed of it.
Astonishing speed. His century came off just 80 balls. Now think about that in Test cricket terms. That makes it England's 3rd fastest century ever in tests.
Wow. 3rd fastest. Under that kind of pressure.
Exactly. When your team is staring down the barrel, it's extraordinary. And he wasn't alone for long. He found a great partner in Harry Brook.
Brook played really well too, didn't he?
He did. A crucial 91 not out. They built this fantastic partnership, unbeaten, 165 runs. And get this, it came off just 154 delivers. Absolutely flying.
So that really pulled England back into it.
Completely. By lunch, they'd surged to 249 for 5. Suddenly, India's lead, which looked massive, was down to 338, much more manageable.
And Smith wasn't just accumulating runs, was he? He was targeting specific bowlers.
Oh, definitely. He hit Ravindra Jadeja for boundaries to bring up his century just before the break. That must have sent a huge jolt through the crowd.
You could almost feel the energy shift, even watching from afar.
And his aggression against Prasidh Krishna took 23 runs off 1 over, then hit Washington Sundar for consecutive boundaries right away. It wasn't just scoring. It was a deliberate strategy. Disrupt the bowlers, seize control.
So looking at the bigger picture of the match.
Well, that one innings didn't just steady the ship. It basically rescued England from what looked like an almost certain collapse. And more than that, it electrified Edgbaston. You went from despair to real buzzing hope.
It kept the match alive?
Absolutely. It gave England a genuine chance to challenge India's dominance even after that disastrous start.
So the takeaway here, beyond just the cricket.
I think it shows how individual brilliance, yes, but also a change in strategy can completely turn the tide, especially in high-stakes situations. Smith showed that sometimes going on the attack, even when you're down, is the best defense. It's a lesson that applies way beyond sports, doesn't it? Business, life. Sometimes calculated aggression is the answer.
A really powerful example. Okay, let's shift gears now, moving from the cricket pitch to the much more complex world of geopolitics. This next headline reveals some pretty intricate strategic maneuvering. It stems from a recent seminar hosted by FICCI, that's the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. The topic was New Age Military Technologies, and something quite significant came out of it.
A real bombshell, actually.
Yes. The Indian Army Deputy Chief, Lieutenant General Rahul Singh, made a rather startling claim. He stated that China used the India-Pakistan conflict back in May 7th to 10th as, and these are his words, a live lab for its military technologies.
A live lab. Just think about that phrase for a moment.
It's chilling, isn't it?
Yeah.
A real conflict, real consequences
Yeah.
being used essentially as a testing ground. It adds a whole new unsettling layer to the regional tensions.
It certainly does, and it immediately flags this bigger question about how warfare itself is evolving. The rise of proxy conflicts in modern geopolitics. LT General Singh actually elaborated on China's strategy. He used an old military saying, killing with a borrowed knife, meaning Beijing positioned Islamabad, Pakistan as the front line. They provided, according to Singh, extensive intelligence and military resources, but all from behind the scenes. No direct, boots-on-the-ground engagement from China.
Ah, okay, like using an ally to do the fighting while you provide the tools and intel.
Exactly. He even referenced the ancient 36 stratagems from Chinese military thought tactics focused on indirect methods, manipulation, achieving goals without direct confrontation.
And what kind of support are we talking about? Was it specific?
Yes, the details cited are quite concerning. Things like satellite surveillance that apparently allowed China to monitor Indian military movements in real time.
Real time. So Pakistani forces were getting live updates.
That's the implication. Receiving live intelligence during critical military communications, effectively giving them a huge tactical advantage, with China as this sort of silent partner providing the eyes in the sky.
That's significant.
Very. And Singh was clear. India wasn't just facing Pakistan. They were countering Pakistan plus China's indirect but significant involvement, plus Turkey's role in supplying military hardware. He called it a three-front challenge.
3 fronts. Wow. That complicates things immensely for India's defense planning.
No question.
Yeah.
And to underscore China's influence, look at this statistic. 81% of Pakistan's entire military arsenal comes from China.
81%?
81. That single number just screams volumes about the depth of that strategic relationship, the leverage it provides Beijing.
So stepping back, what does this all really mean for the region, for geopolitics?
It signals a pretty profound shift, I think, towards more asymmetric warfare, where technology plays a huge role, blurring the traditional lines of conflict. China's indirect approach here, coupled with these partnerships, it suggests a new kind of playbook.
Aimed at unsettling India.
That seems to be part of it.
Yeah.
Influencing the regional power balance, testing their own tech, all while maintaining plausible deniability. And, as Singh noted, India's defense leadership is now intensely studying these patterns, trying to refine their own countermeasures, boost their tech capabilities.
It's not just a proxy war then, it's like layered technological warfare.
That's a good way to put it. Major powers influencing conflicts, testing systems without ever firing a shot themselves directly. It really changes the game.
So why does this matter to, someone listening who isn't a military strategist?
Because understanding these hidden influences, these indirect plays, helps you grasp what's really driving global power struggles. It's often not what you see on the surface news reports. It's this complex web of alliances, technology, and strategy underneath. It reminds us that modern conflict is rarely simple.
A sobering thought. Okay, let's move from regional conflict dynamics to the world of global trade. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa seem to be making their collective voice heard quite strongly. There's an upcoming BRICS summit in Brazil, and apparently the draft communiqué, the statement they'll issue, signals some pretty deep concerns about current global trade practices.
Yes, they're taking a stand.
The key phrase seems to be a denunciation of unilateral coercive measures contrary to international law. Now, they don't explicitly name names.
But the target seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
It does. It's widely interpreted as a, let's say, veiled reference to the United States and specifically President Donald Trump's tariffs. It's BRICS basically saying, we don't like this direction.
And the interesting part here is the strategic nuance. It's a collective statement, but how they phrase it matters. They plan to express serious concern about tariffs and other barriers that, destabilize global trade.
Which affects everyone, not just them.
Exactly. It creates unpredictability, hinders growth. And for India, specifically a founding BRICS member, this isn't just abstract. They're facing their own U.S. tariffs right now and are scrambling to negotiate deals before a July 9th deadline set by the U.S.
Ah, so this BRICS stance has very direct relevance for India's current situation.
Absolutely. It resonates strongly in New Delhi as they navigate their own economic pressures.
But are the BRICS nations completely united on this?
Well, that's where it gets complicated. The draft statement also kind of highlights the fissures within the bloc. India, for instance, has much closer ties with Washington, both economically and strategically, than, say, China does.
And China is often seen as the driving force behind BRICS.
By some analysts, yes. So India is performing this delicate balancing act. They share the concern about tariffs, but they also value their relationship with the U.S. This internal dynamic could definitely shape the final wording of the communiqué, maybe soften its impact somewhat.
So it's not just about trade then.
No, the draft apparently goes broader. It talks about multilateral cooperation on big issues like climate change, the conflicts in the Middle East. They're positioning BRICS as a sort of counterweight to unilateralism, promoting a rules-based international order.
But with caveats because of those internal divisions.
Precisely. They don't seem keen on a direct, head-on confrontation with the U.S., even though they disapprove of the policies. It's more about strategic signaling, projecting leadership, but without alienating crucial trade partners. It's pragmatic.
So zooming out, what's the big picture here?
It shows these major emerging powers wanting to uphold international norms, wanting stability. They're pushing back against disruptive unilateral actions, even if their internal differences mean they tread carefully.
What does this tell us, the listeners?
It really sheds light on that intricate dance of international diplomacy and economics. You see emerging powers trying to reshape global rules, trying to assert themselves, but always having to balance that with their own specific national interests and complex relationships. It's a constant negotiation.
A delicate balance indeed. Okay, let's shift gears completely now to a story much closer to home for many people, utility bills. Though this one involves a politician, making it quite noteworthy. We're talking about Rajasthan's energy minister, Hiralal Nagar. He's taken a very firm public stance on electricity bill payments. His message, no exceptions, not even for elected officials.
A strong statement, definitely.
It came about because there was a political uproar after the power was cut off at the residence of Hanuman Benwal. He's the chief of the RLP party and also the member of parliament for Nagaur.
And the power was cut simply for unpaid dues.
Apparently so. And it wasn't handled quietly. It clearly stirred up quite a bit of political heat in the state.
Which immediately brings up this whole issue of, privilege versus public administration, doesn't it? It's a classic tension in democracies.
Exactly. Minister Nagar basically said, look, public representatives are treated just like any other customer. He emphasized that disconnecting power for non-payment is a standard procedure for all defaulters.
Did he use the term VIP treatment?
He did. His quote was, "No VIP treatment will be given to anyone in such matters." A very direct challenge to that perception, or sometimes reality, that powerful people get treated differently.
So he's trying to cool down the political side while reinforcing a principle?
Seems like it. Reinforcing that holding office doesn't mean you get a pass on basic responsibilities.
Yeah.
And this whole incident has sort of reignited a broader discussion about accountability in public services.
There's a symbolic weight to it, isn't there? Holding an MP accountable for an unpaid bill.
Absolutely. It sends a message, intended or not, that maybe the rules do apply equally, at least when it comes to utilities. It potentially builds a bit of public trust.
So, what could the wider implications be? Well, if Minister Nagar's stance holds, if this isn't just a one-off, it could set a precedent. It might signal a move away from political influence, interfering in routine administrative tasks. Potentially, it could influence how other public utilities handle similar cases across India. A push for more accountability from the top down.
It seems like a small thing, an electricity bill, but it touches on big principles.
It really does. It's a powerful little example of how even seemingly minor leadership decisions can underscore fundamental ideas like equality and accountability in a democracy. It's about whether the system works fairly for everyone, and that's something you, as a citizen, can definitely relate to.
Absolutely. Now let's turn to another issue that affects almost everyone in the modern world.
Yeah.
Digital misinformation. This is a huge challenge, and West Bengal's chief minister, Mamata Banerjee, is pushing hard for action. She's formally written to the Union Home Minister, Amit Shah, urging him to tackle what she calls India's escalating digital crisis. That's strong language.
Digital crisis. Yes, it certainly grabs your attention.
And her claims are serious. She's drawing a direct line between unchecked cybercrime, inflammatory online content, and real-world violence and social disruption.
Is she citing specific examples?
She is. She mentions recent communal unrest, but also some truly horrific crimes. A gang rape of a law student, the rape and murder of a trainee doctor, suggesting that the online environment is somehow fueling or enabling this kind of violence and tension. It's a deeply disturbing connection she's making.
It really underscores how the virtual world has become a major front in governance and public safety, doesn't it? It's not just online chatter anymore.
Not according to her. Her main worry seems to be the incredibly fast spread of fake videos, fake news, incendiary posts, especially on social media. She sees these as direct triggers for violence, particularly in sensitive areas like Murshidabad and Maheshtala, where there have been recent riots.
So she's saying online content is actively causing offline violence.
That's her argument.
Yeah.
That it's not just reflecting tensions, but actively inciting unrest with alarming speed and having these tangible, destructive results.
And does she think the current rules are sufficient?
Not at all. She criticizes the existing policy frameworks, basically calling them inadequate for dealing with these sophisticated, evolving cyber threats. She warns that malicious actors are exploiting loopholes.
And targeting specific groups.
Yes, she points that out too, that it's not just general misinformation, but often targeted attacks against institutions and especially vulnerable individuals, women, children, the poor people who might be less equipped to spot fake news or protect themselves online.
So what's her proposed solution?
It's a two-pronged approach. On one hand, much stronger legal enforcement. On the other, big grassroots campaigns focused on digital literacy.
So both punishing the bad actors and empowering the public.
Exactly. Moving towards proactive governance, she says. Not just reacting after the fact, but preventing harm by educating citizens to be more discerning online, while also having the legal teeth to go after those spreading dangerous content.
Politically, this puts pressure on the central government, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a formal public plea to Home Minister Shah. It highlights West Bengal's concerns, but frames it as a critical national issue. It's basically a warning. Inaction on this digital crisis will have severe social and legal consequences that are already piling up.
It really taps into a global struggle, doesn't it? How do governments manage online narratives, fight misinformation, protect citizens from digital harm?
It's a huge challenge everywhere.
And it reminds you, listening to this, that what happens online isn't separate from the real world. It has profound impacts on safety, on social harmony, even on democracy itself. The trustworthiness of the information you see every day is directly at stake.
A critical issue. Okay, sticking with the digital theme but shifting to the business side. A major tech company, Microsoft, has just made a pretty significant move regarding its presence in Pakistan. After 25 years in the country, Microsoft is formally exiting Pakistan. That's quite a statement.
A quarter of a century is a long time. That's a big decision.
The reasons they've cited are perhaps predictable, but still telling. Ongoing political instability, economic uncertainty, and technological challenges within the country.
Standard concerns for multinationals, but clearly reaching a tipping point for Microsoft there.
And interestingly, the news didn't come from a big corporate press release. It actually surfaced through a LinkedIn post by Jawad Rahman, who was the founding head of Microsoft Pakistan.
That's an unusual way to announce such a major withdrawal. It suggests perhaps a quiet phasing out rather than a sudden chop.
It does seem like it. So this raises the question of how global companies weigh these risks, right? How they decide where to invest or divest.
Constantly reassessing. And Microsoft's operation in Pakistan is now down to basically a skeleton crew, maybe 5 people in a liaison office, a huge reduction from their previous presence. It confirms a complete wind down.
Will Pakistani customers see disruptions?
Microsoft says no. They've given assurances that support will continue through regional offices and their certified partners. So existing contracts, enterprise solutions, that should all remain operational. The immediate impact on users might be minimal.
But the symbolic impact is huge.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you contrast it with what Microsoft is doing elsewhere in the region.
Like in India.
Exactly. Microsoft is planning to invest $3 billion in India over the next couple of years. That stark difference, pulling out of Pakistan while heavily investing next door, really highlights a strategic shift. They're moving away from markets with persistent governance and infrastructure issues towards places offering more stability and growth potential, especially in the digital space.
Has Pakistan's tech sector faced ongoing issues?
Unfortunately, yes. Things like inconsistent regulations, unreliable digital policies, limited local innovation capacity. These systemic problems likely played a big part in Microsoft's decision. It reflects broader concerns about the business climate there.
So what's the bigger takeaway from Microsoft's exit?
While the day-to-day for users might not change much immediately, it's a significant indicator. It highlights concerns about Pakistan's economic and political environment. More broadly, it shows this trend of multinationals carefully reevaluating where they put their money based on these complex geopolitical and technological landscapes.
It shows how business decisions are tied to stability.
Deeply intertwined. And these decisions by global giants don't just affect the company or the country, they shape the economic future of entire regions, investment, jobs, tech development. It's a real-world example of global economics responding directly to geopolitical realities. For you, it's a signpost of how these large-scale shifts happen.
Fascinating dynamics.
Yeah.
All right, let's head back to India, specifically to Bihar, where state election campaigning for 2025 is well underway. And one particular campaign tactic has really ignited a firestorm of controversy. The Congress Party has launched an initiative distributing sanitary pads, but the packaging features the image of Rahul Gandhi.
Right, I saw this headline. It certainly catches the eye.
They plan to distribute these to over 500,000 women as part of their Priyadarshini Udan Yojana. And it's tied to a promise of a monthly payment, $2,500, for women from disadvantaged backgrounds. The stated aim is menstrual hygiene awareness, but the branding choice, well, it's caused a huge reaction.
You can see how it would. It brings together social welfare, political messaging, and some very deep cultural sensitivities in India.
The reaction was strong.
Very strong and immediate. The BJP spokesperson, Pradeep Bandaria, didn't mince words. He called it an insult of women, accused Congress of being anti-women, and predicted women would punish them at the ballot box for it. It shows how quickly something intended perhaps as a social good can become politically toxic.
Has it affected how other parties are campaigning?
It seems to have intensified the focus on women voters, definitely. Everyone's scrambling to show they connect with women. The opposition coalition, the Mahagathbandhan, quickly promised their own cash transfer scheme for women.
A competing offer.
Exactly. And the ruling party, the JDU, launched a massive door-to-door campaign called Mahila Samvad, specifically targeting 20 million women voters. So yes, women's votes are clearly seen as absolutely crucial.
So this controversy raises a bigger question, doesn't it?
It really does. Is it appropriate? Is it dignified? To use a very personal product like a sanitary pad for political branding, opinions are sharply divided.
Some might see it as progressive, tackling a taboo subject.
Possibly. You could argue it brings menstrual hygiene, a vital health issue, into the open, but others see it as exploitative, disrespectful, just using women's health for political gain. This debate is definitely adding fuel to the fire ahead of the Bihar election.
What's the lesson here for listeners?
It shows how incredibly sensitive social issues, especially around women's health and dignity, can become political footballs during election time. It reflects very different views on how to connect with voters, particularly women, and the fine line between outreach and exploitation. It's a reminder that even well-intentioned campaigns need to be really mindful of cultural context and messaging.
A very fine line indeed. Okay, still in Bihar, the political maneuvering continues. Another party, AIMIM, is making a bid to join a major alliance.
Ah, yes, AIMIM Asaduddin Owaitsi's party. They're looking to join the Mahagathbandhan, the main opposition bloc.
Right, and this comes as the BJP, through Union Minister Kiran Rijiju, is strongly emphasizing its own secular credentials, saying they treat all religious groups equally.
Which is interesting timing, given AIMIM's push. This whole episode really highlights how parties frame religious identity and build alliances in India's diverse political landscape.
So Rijiju's comments are a counter-narrative.
Seems that way. He criticized parties that, as he put it, conduct politics based on caste and religion, calling them communal. He's asserting that India's secular framework guarantees equal freedoms for everyone, including Muslims, directly pushing back against any perception of the BJP being biased.
Meanwhile, what's AIMIM's reasoning for wanting to join the Mahagathbandhan?
Their Bihar state president, Akhtarul Iman, put it very clearly. He argues that including AIMIM would prevent secular vote splits. Basically, consolidate the Muslim vote behind the alliance to ensure victory against the ruling coalition.
Has AIMIM tried this before in Bihar?
They have. In the 2020 election, they allied with some smaller parties but couldn't get into the Mahagathbandhan. Now, with reports that Owaisi himself is talking to Congress and left leaders, they're clearly making another push, hoping to gain more influence by being part of a bigger coalition.
So what does this political maneuvering signify overall?
It really heats up the pre-election talk in Bihar. You see these clashing ideas about how coalitions should be built, about representing different communities. The BJP is playing the secularism card while trying to paint opponents as divisive. AIMIM is arguing for minority vote consolidation. It's a classic battle over identity politics and vote bank strategies.
What does this show us about coalition politics generally?
It vividly illustrates the complex dance of coalition building in multi-party systems like India's. You see how different groups, different parties, jostle for power, for representation, often using identity, religion, caste as a key part of their strategy. It's a fascinating, sometimes messy part of democratic politics, showing how power is negotiated.
Definitely complex.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move from political strategy to a threat that's arguably more insidious: cybercrime. India's courts are taking a very strong stance on this. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has issued a stark warning, calling cybercrime as silent viruses. Justice Sumit Goel stated it threatens national progress, economic security, and crucially, digital trust.
Silent viruses. That's powerful language from a high court judge. It signals real alarm.
It came during a specific case, right? Rejecting bail for a young man accused of cyber fraud.
Yes, a 22-year-old named Suhal. He was accused of being involved in siphoning off 25 lakh, that's 2.5 million rupees, from a joint bank account using digital payment methods like RTGS and IMPS back in 2024.
So the court sees this not just as individual theft, but a systemic threat.
Exactly. That's the key point. The way the fraud happened is unfortunately quite common: deceptive phone calls pretending to be from the bank, tricking the victim. Money was traced to an account linked to the accused. The police argued they needed him in custody to unravel the whole network.
Did the accused have a defense?
He cited a neurological illness and denied direct involvement. But Justice Goel felt the preliminary evidence was strong enough and, importantly, stressed the gravity of the crime and its impact on society.
And that's where the silent viruses analogy came in.
Precisely. He warned that cybercrime does damage far beyond just the financial loss. It erodes public confidence in digital systems, which is fundamental to a modern economy. He called for judges to be extra vigilant.
He also linked it to national goals.
He did. He specifically said cyber fraud undermines the whole vision of digital Bharat, India's push to become a digitally empowered nation. He called for better systemic resilience, stronger scrutiny. It's a judicial call to action, really.
It raises that big question again. How do legal systems keep up with technology?
It's a constant challenge, isn't it? Cybercrime evolves so quickly, often crosses borders. Traditional legal tools sometimes struggle. This ruling shows the judiciary recognizing the need to adapt and take these tech-based crimes very seriously.
What's the takeaway for the average person?
It underscores that digital security isn't just about protecting your own bank account, though that's vital. It's about the trustworthiness of the entire digital infrastructure we all increasingly rely on for banking, communication, everything. It highlights why legal frameworks must keep pace to protect citizens and the economy as a whole.
A crucial point. Okay, circling back to international trade. We touched on the U.S. tariffs earlier. India's Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, has been very direct about India's stance in negotiations with the U.S. He stated quite clearly, India will not be rushed. No trade deal unless India's national interests are fully protected and they get lasting tariff benefits.
A firm negotiating position.
Very. In an interview, he emphasized the Modi government's commitment to protecting farmers and other key domestic sectors. And he specifically pushed back against that July 9th deadline that President Trump had mentioned for a possible mini-deal. He basically said, we won't be pressured by artificial timelines.
That's quite assertive on the international stage. It sounds like a consistent strategy, too.
He pointed that out. He mentioned previous deals with the UK, Australia, EFTA, UAE, where India successfully defended its agricultural interests. He's framing this as part of a deliberate long-term approach, not just reacting to the U.S.
So what does India want out of a potential U.S. deal?
Specific concessions, mainly. Lower duties for U.S. imports in labor-intensive Indian sectors like leather, textiles, footwear, some auto parts, things that create jobs in India.
And what would they offer in return?
Possibly lower tariffs on some U.S. goods, like cars and American whiskey. It's presented as a balanced negotiation, aiming for mutual benefit, but with clear red lines.
What are the main sticking points? Agriculture is a big one. The U.S. wants lower tariffs on things like maize, soybeans, dairy products. India is resisting hard on that to protect its own massive farm sector. That's politically and economically very sensitive in India.
And India wants guarantees for the future.
Yes, that's crucial. They want protection from sudden future tariff hikes by the U.S., and they want preferential treatment compared to competitors like China and Vietnam, ensuring any deal provides a stable, long-term advantage.
So is a deal likely before July 9th?
Based on Goyle's comments, it seems pretty uncertain. He's downplaying that deadline, but the expectation is that talks will continue, aiming for a broader, more comprehensive agreement later on, maybe after a Modi-Trump meeting.
What does this signal about India's approach to trade?
It signals a very strategic, self-assured approach, resisting external pressure, prioritizing domestic concerns, aiming for equitable deals built on long-term national interests, not short-term deadlines. It reinforces India's image as a major economic player negotiating on its own terms.
How does this impact people listening?
It shows how countries navigate the tricky balance between global trade opportunities and protecting their own industries and people. This high-stakes negotiation directly affects the economies, the jobs, the prices of goods, not just in India and the U.S., but globally. It's a real-time example of that complex diplomatic and economic dance.
A very complex stance indeed. Now, for something completely different and truly inspiring, a story that literally takes us out of this world. India's first astronaut on the International Space Station, Shubhranshu Shukla, has been connecting directly with students back home. How amazing is that?
It really is incredible, a direct line from the ISS to classrooms in India.
It was done through ISRO's Vidyarthi Samvad program, ISRO being the Indian Space Research Organization. Group Captain Shukla, the first Indian up there, talking to kids from City Montessori School and others. Imagine being one of those students.
Absolutely transformative. It's one thing to read about space, quite another to hear about it from someone actually floating up there.
But what did he share? What were the kids curious about?
All sorts of things. He gave really vivid descriptions of daily life. He talked about sleeping. They have to sleep in anchored sleeping bags so they don't float away.
Practical, but sounds so strange.
Doesn't it? He talked about food, mostly prepackaged meals, but he mentioned having Indian comfort foods like gajar ka halwa and arras sent up. A little taste of home.
That's a lovely detail. What about health? Are there doctors on the ISS?
No doctors, apparently. The astronauts get extensive medical training before they go, and they carry supplies to handle emergencies. They have to be quite self-sufficient up there.
And the emotional side. What's it like looking down at Earth?
He described it as profoundly moving, serene, a source of deep reflection, giving a real sense of perspective, of interconnectedness. He said they don't get much free time, but watching the planet is a highlight.
Must be incredible. Did he talk about adapting physically?
Yes, the initial disorientation of microgravity, then gradual adjustment, but also the challenge of coming back, muscles weaken, balance is off, so they need significant retraining on Earth.
And his journey there?
He mentioned the Axiom Mission 4 launch from Kennedy Space Center on June 25, 2025. And when he arrived at the ISS, marking that historic moment as the first Indian astronaut aboard, he greeted everyone with Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, a very proud moment for India. What this kind of interaction does, it really raises that question. How do we keep fostering this kind of curiosity, this passion for science and exploration in young people?
These direct connections must be so powerful.
Invaluable. They make space exploration real, tangible, exciting. It makes it feel achievable for a new generation.
What's the message for everyone listening?
It's just a powerful reminder of human ingenuity, isn't it? The potential of space exploration is boundless. It inspires dreams, pushes boundaries, shows what we can achieve when we invest in science, exploration, and education. It truly lifts your sights beyond the everyday.
A wonderful story. Okay, let's come back down to earth now, specifically to the world of high finance. India's market regulator, SEBI, has taken some extremely strong action against a major U.S. trading firm. This has definitely made waves. We're talking about SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India. They've issued an interim order banning the U.S. firm Jane Street and its affiliates from India's securities markets.
A major player like Jane Street, that's significant. Why?
The allegation is manipulation of the Bank Nifty index, a very important index in India. And the scale of the action is huge. SEBI has seized nearly 48.4 billion rupees. That's about $567 million, which they claim are unlawful gains.
Wow. That's one of the biggest actions SEBI has ever taken against a foreign firm, isn't it?
Reportedly the strictest ever. It signals a real determination to crack down.
So what exactly is Jane Street accused of doing? How did they allegedly manipulate the index?
SEBI calls it egregious manipulation. They claim Jane Street used a sophisticated strategy making large trades in the cash and futures markets to artificially move the index value, while simultaneously holding opposite positions in derivatives linked to that index.
Ah, so essentially betting against themselves while influencing the outcome. That seems to be the core allegation. SEBI argues this misled retail investors and fundamentally distorted how prices were discovered in the market, particularly around the index expiry days.
How long was this going on?
The investigation took over 2 years. SEBI says they found patterns of concentrated trading designed specifically to influence the Bank Nifty settlement price on those crucial expiry days. It wasn't accidental, they claim.
So what happens to Jane Street now? Are they completely out?
They're currently restricted from buying, selling, or dealing in Indian securities. However, there's a possibility of limited trading resuming if they deposit the seized funds into an escrow account and assure SEBI they've stopped the alleged manipulative practices. The exchanges are also involved in carefully unwinding their existing positions to avoid disrupting the market.
What's the market reaction been?
Market experts seem to think overall liquidity won't be badly affected, suggesting other foreign players aren't implicated. It looks like a targeted action against Jane Street specifically.
And Jane Street's response?
They dispute the findings, as you might expect, and plan to challenge the order, likely through the Securities Appellate Tribunal. So we're probably looking at a lengthy legal fight. What's the bigger picture significance of this crackdown?
It really reflects SEBI flexing its regulatory muscles. They seem determined to strengthen oversight of India's derivatives market, which is now the world's largest by trading volume. It sends a clear message. Foreign firms exploiting loopholes or engaging in manipulation won't be tolerated. And, importantly, it highlights SEBI's focus on protecting retail investors and maintaining market integrity.
So it's about trust and fairness in the market.
Absolutely. It underscores that global regulators are increasingly willing to take bold action against financial manipulation. These complex markets affect everyone, so maintaining trust is critical. This case shows regulators stepping up to ensure a level playing field, a major development in financial regulation. Okay, finally tonight, a story that blends modern convenience with a rather unsettling reminder about personal safety, especially in the context of the gig economy. This one went viral online. It involves a woman in Delhi who ordered from Blinkit, the delivery service, late at night. Her experience left her and her sister quite shaken. She shared it on Reddit under the title, "Scary Blinkit Guy on My Door at Midnight."
Oh, dear. Just ordering ice cream, wasn't it? Around midnight.
Exactly. She sent her sister to the door to collect it. But the interaction was apparently very strange and unnerving.
How so? What happened?
According to her post, the delivery man behaved unusually. He was just sort of lingering outside their door, didn't respond properly when her sister spoke to him, looked disoriented, had bloodshot eyes. Her description was stark. He looked possessed. That really conveys the fear they felt.
This sounds genuinely frightening. What did they do?
She acted quickly, told him through the door to just leave the package on the floor. They waited until he left, then locked the door securely. She even called out loudly to her sleeping father just to make the delivery guy think they weren't alone. Smart thinking in a scary situation.
Definitely. And in her post, she specifically warned other women living alone in Delhi to be cautious about late-night deliveries, saying, "You never know when things might take a turn." The story clearly struck a chord online, leading to a lot of discussion.
What kind of advice came up in the discussion?
Practical tips, mostly. Things like asking delivery agents to leave packages in the building lift or a designated safe spot, especially late at night, to avoid direct interaction. Some people offered alternative explanations. Maybe the guy was just exhausted, unwell.
Which is possible, of course.
True.
Yeah.
But the consensus was clear.
Right.
Better safe than sorry. Caution is always sensible, especially in potentially vulnerable situations.
So what does this incident tell us more broadly?
It taps into this growing undercurrent of anxiety about safety and trust related to gig economy services. You know, the convenience is great, but it involves strangers coming to your home, often at odd hours. This story, starting from a simple ice cream order, became a trigger for deeper conversations.
Conversations about what?
About women's safety in cities, about urban loneliness, and importantly, about the responsibilities of these gig economy companies. Do they need better protocols for late-night deliveries, better support, or screening for their workers? It raises complex questions.
What's the takeaway for you listening at home?
It just highlights that human element behind all the convenient apps and services we use. It reminds us that safety, trust, and even empathy are crucial parts of these interactions. It prompts a really vital discussion about how we ensure safety and responsibility for both customers and workers in these evolving urban environments shaped by technology.
A chilling story, but an important conversation to have. Well, what an incredible range we've covered in this deep dive today. Seriously, from the highs and lows of Test cricket at Edgbaston.
To the complexities of geopolitics and China's live lab.
Right, then the BRICS nations making their voice heard on global trade, the debate over VIP treatment for electricity bills in Rajasthan.
The urgent calls to tackle digital misinformation, Microsoft's strategic exit from Pakistan.
The controversies around election campaign tactics in Bihar, AIMIM's alliance push.
The courts cracking down on cybercrime as a silent viruses, India's firm stance in trade talks.
An astronaut inspiring students from space. And then SEBI's massive action against Jane Street. And finally, that unsettling gig economy safety reminder.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? These aren't just separate news stories.
Not at all. They're threads, sometimes tangled, sometimes clear in the huge, complex tapestry of modern India, and they all have ripples that extend globally.
Absolutely. And hopefully what this deep dive has shown is that looking beyond the headlines, digging into the why and the so what, reveals these powerful forces shaping nations and individuals. Global power shifts, the drive for accountability, digital security challenges, human ambition, vulnerability, it's all in there. Understanding these deeper nuances, seeing the connections, that's what being truly well-informed is about, isn't it? Moving past the surface noise.
So a final thought for you to ponder as we wrap up. In this world absolutely saturated with information, how do you tell the difference between just surface news and those deeper currents that are really driving change? From everything we discussed today, what stands out to you most about that delicate, ongoing balance between national interests, global interconnectedness, and individual well-being?